The red dust kicked up around Commander Alex Chen's boots as he planted the American flag on the Martian surface. The year was 2047, and humanity had finally established its first permanent base on the red planet. The small team of 12 astronauts had been living in their pressurized habitats for nearly 6 months, conducting experiments and collecting data that would pave the way for future colonization efforts. Mission Control, this is Mars Base Alpha. Flag ceremony complete, Alex reported, his voice crackling slightly over the radio. Sending visuals now. He stepped back and admired their handiwork. The stars and stripes stood proudly against the rusty landscape, a symbol of hope and human achievement. Behind him, the white domes of their base gleamed in the distant sunlight, a stark contrast to the desolate terrain that surrounded them. What the 12 astronauts didn't know was that their most significant discovery was just hours away, a discovery that would change everything we thought we knew about Mars and our place in the universe. Dr. Lucia Rodriguez wiped the sweat from her brow as she studied the readings on her tablet. The ground-penetrating radar had picked up something unusual about 2 kilometers west of the base. A large, perfectly circular formation approximately 50 meters beneath the surface. "Hey Mike, come look at this," she called to her colleague, Dr. Michael Wong, who was calibrating equipment nearby. Mike set down his tools and peered over her shoulder. "That can't be natural," he muttered, zooming in on the anomaly. "The symmetry is too perfect. We need to get a drilling team out there." Within 24 hours, a 3-person expedition was geared up and ready to investigate. Alex insisted on leading the team himself, along with Lucia and their geologist, Dr. Thomas Baines. The rover journey took just under an hour, with the team arriving as the Martian sun reached its zenith. "This is the spot," Lucia confirmed, double-checking her coordinates. "The formation should be directly beneath us." The team set up their drilling equipment, a specialized machine designed to extract core samples from beneath the Martian surface. Hours passed as they carefully bored through the layers of regolith and rock. "We're approaching the target depth," Tom announced, monitoring the drill's progress. 48 meters, 49. The drill suddenly lurched, and the pressure readings dropped dramatically. "Whoa, hold on," Tom said, frantically adjusting controls. "I think we've hit a cavity." When they withdrew the drill, something unexpected happened. A geyser of clear liquid erupted from the borehole, shooting several meters into the air before raining down around them. "Is that water?" Alex asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lucia quickly collected a sample in a sterile container. Her hands trembled as she ran preliminary tests, her heart pounding in her chest. "It's water. Actual liquid water," she confirmed, her voice filled with wonder. "Not just ice or vapor, flowing water." The discovery made headlines across Earth. Liquid water on Mars, in significant quantities, hidden beneath the surface. It was the breakthrough scientists had been hoping for. Within weeks, additional drilling sites were established, revealing an extensive network of underground aquifers spanning much of the planet's equatorial region. But then, strange things began happening at the base. Equipment malfunctioned without explanation. Communications with Earth experienced unusual disruptions. Team members reported hearing odd sounds at night, like something scraping against the outer shell of their habitats. 3 months after the water discovery, during a routine maintenance check of one of the drilling sites, technician Raj Patel noticed something embedded in the wall of the borehole. Using a small camera probe, he captured images of what appeared to be artificial structures, geometric patterns that couldn't possibly have formed naturally. "I think we need to expand this hole and send someone down there," Alex said after reviewing the footage with his team. The vote was unanimous. They had to investigate. The descent into the darkness below the Martian surface was tense. Alex led the way, with Lucia and Tom following close behind. Their helmet lights illuminated a tunnel that gradually widened into what could only be described as a chamber. The walls were covered with symbols unlike anything they'd ever seen before. "This can't be possible," Tom whispered. "These markings, they're not natural formations." As they ventured deeper into the chamber, their lights revealed something that made them freeze in their tracks. In the center of the room stood what appeared to be a control panel of some kind, still glowing with faint blue light. They weren't alone on Mars. And whatever had been sleeping beneath the surface for millennia was now waking up. The first attack came without warning. A piercing sound that cut through their comms, followed by violent tremors that shook the entire base. By the time they realized what was happening, it was already too late. The war for Mars had begun. The tremors lasted for nearly 3 minutes, knocking equipment off shelves and cracking one of the habitat's secondary oxygen tanks. When the shaking finally stopped, the base was plunged into darkness. "Everyone report in," Alex shouted into his emergency comm unit. One by one, the team members responded, confirming they were unharmed. The backup generators kicked in moments later, bathing the common area in dim red emergency lighting. "What the hell was that?" Dr. Wong asked, helping a dazed Raj back to his feet. "Marsquake?" Tom suggested, though his voice betrayed his doubt. Mars had seismic activity, but nothing that should have caused such violent tremors. Lucia was already checking the monitors. That wasn't natural. The epicenter was directly beneath Drill Site 3, exactly where we found those structures. Alex made a quick decision. "I want everyone suited up and ready to evacuate to the secondary shelter if necessary. Mike, get communications back online with Earth. We need to report this." But establishing contact with Mission Control proved impossible. Every frequency they tried was filled with the same strange interference, a pulsing, rhythmic static that seemed almost like a code. "It's being jammed," Mike concluded after an hour of failed attempts. "Something is deliberately blocking our transmissions." That night, no one slept. The team huddled in the common area, weapons drawn, standard issue sidearms that had been included in their equipment more as a precaution against human conflict than any anticipated alien threat. The notion seemed absurd now, these small firearms against whatever force had shaken their base like a child's toy. "Tell me again what you saw down there," Alex said, turning to Tom and Lucia. Tom pulled up the images they'd captured on his tablet. The chamber was clearly artificial. The symbols covered every surface, walls, ceiling, floor. He zogled in on one section. "See these recurring patterns? They appear to be some kind of writing system." "And the control panel?" Alex pressed. "Still active after who knows how long," Lucia added. "The technology must be incredibly advanced to maintain power for potentially thousands or even millions of years beneath the surface." Dr. Yasmin Kapoor, their exobiologist, had been studying the water samples collected from the various drill sites. She cleared her throat nervously. "I think I found something relevant," she said, connecting her tablet to the main display. "I've been analyzing the molecular structure of the water. It's not just H2O. There are trace elements I can't identify, and microscopic structures that appear to be, well, the closest analogy would be nanobots." She pulled up an electron microscope image showing what looked like tiny mechanical spiders, each smaller than a human cell. "Are they alive?" Alex asked. "Not in the biological sense we understand," Yasmin replied. "But they're active, and they're communicating with each other." The implications hung heavy in the air. If there were artificial nanomachines in the water, then someone, or something, had put them there. "The water is contaminated," Alex realized. "Have we been drinking it? Using it?" "No," Yasmin assured him. "We've only been using our own recycled water supply from Earth." "But..." She hesitated. "But what?" Alex demanded. "I've detected traces of these nanomachines in our air filters. They're airborne now, spreading throughout the base." The revelation sent a chill through the room. Whatever technology they'd disturbed beneath Mars was now infiltrating their habitat, perhaps even their bodies. The loud clang from outside made everyone jump. It came from the direction of the airlock. "Something's trying to get in," Mike whispered. Alex motioned for silence and edged toward the external camera controls. The monitor flickered to life, showing the airlock exterior. At first, nothing seemed amiss. The Martian landscape was as desolate as ever in the pale moonlight of Phobos. Then they saw it, a distortion in the air, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The distortion moved across the camera's field of view, stopping directly in front of the airlock door. "It's some kind of cloaking technology," Lucia breathed. The airlock's external panel suddenly lit up as someone, or something, began inputting the entry code. "That's impossible," Mike said. "Only we know those codes." But the impossible was happening before their eyes. The airlock door slid open, though no visible entity entered. The inner door remained sealed, but the team knew it was only a matter of time before whatever had entered the airlock would be inside their habitat. "We need to get to the armory," Alex ordered. "Now." The team moved quickly through the narrow corridors of the base, the red emergency lights casting eerie shadows. Behind them, they heard the inner airlock door beginning its opening sequence. The next few hours became a desperate game of cat and mouse. The team fortified themselves in the southern habitat module, sealing the connecting doors and establishing a makeshift command center. Through the base's internal cameras, they caught glimpses of their invisible invaders, moments where the cloaking technology flickered, revealing humanoid shapes that moved with unsettling precision through their home. But the most disturbing discovery came when they reviewed footage from inside the laboratory where the water samples were stored. The containers had been opened, their contents examined. Earth's first contact with alien intelligence wasn't happening through diplomatic channels or formal first contact protocols. It was happening through infiltration and what increasingly felt like the opening moves of a war for Mars, and the precious water that both species now coveted. 3 days passed since the initial breach. The team had settled into an uneasy rhythm, moving through the habitat in pairs, never letting their guard down. They'd managed to secure the critical sections of the base, life support, the armory, and the medical bay, but the invisible intruders maintained control of the laboratories and communications center. Alex stood at the improvised barricade they'd erected in the main corridor, staring at the security feed from the lab. "They're studying us," he said quietly as Lucia joined him. "Just like we're studying them." On the screen, one of the aliens had momentarily dropped its cloaking. The creature stood nearly 7 feet tall, with a slender body covered in what appeared to be a form-fitting environmental suit. Its head was elongated, with no visible eyes, just a smooth, reflective surface where a face should be. "We managed to capture some of their communications," Lucia said, handing Alex her tablet. "It's not a language as we understand it. More like complex mathematical sequences." Alex scrolled through the data. "Have you shown this to Mike?" "He's working on it now. Says it reminds him of binary code, but far more sophisticated." She hesitated. "Alex, there's something else. The nanobots in the water? They're replicating. And they're not just in the water anymore. They're restructuring the Martian soil around the base." "Terraforming," Alex realized. "But not for us." A sudden explosion rocked the habitat, throwing them both against the wall. Alarms blared throughout the base. "They're making their move," Alex said, grabbing his weapon. "Sound the rally." The team had prepared for this moment. Within seconds, everyone was armed and in position. Through the smoke filling the corridor, they could see the distorted air patterns that betrayed the aliens' presence. "Hold your fire until you have a clear target," Alex ordered through the comm link. "Remember your training." The aliens' first volley wasn't bullets or lasers, but a swarm of the same nanobots they discovered in the water. The tiny machines poured through the ventilation system, converging on the human's position like a metallic fog. "Masks on," Dr. Kapoor shouted. They developed makeshift filters after discovering the nanobot contamination, but none of them knew if these would hold against a concentrated attack. Tom was the first to fire, hitting one of the partially visible aliens square in the chest. The creature staggered backward, its cloaking device failing completely. For the first time, they got a clear look at what they were fighting, beings that seemed part biological, part mechanical, with skin that shifted and rippled like liquid metal. "They're not just aliens," Tom gasped. "There's some kind of biomechanical hybrid." The wounded alien emitted a high-pitched sound that pierced through their comms, causing everyone to wince in pain. In response, the nanobots changed formation, concentrating into a dense cloud that began systematically attacking the habitat's electrical systems. "They're cutting power to life support," Mike warned from his position at the control panel. "Rerouting to emergency systems." Raj appeared at Alex's side, his face streaked with sweat and grime. "Commander," I think I figured something out. The control panel we found underground, it's not just a control panel. It's a key. A key to what? Alex demanded, firing another shot at a shadowy figure moving toward them. I think it's a key to the entire aquifer system. Those chambers we found? They're just the entrance to something much bigger. I believe there's an entire network of tunnels and structures beneath the surface, all connected to the water supply. The realization hit Alex like a physical blow. If Raj was right, then what they discovered wasn't just water on Mars, it was an entire alien infrastructure built around controlling that water. And they had unwittingly awakened its guardians. We need to get back down there, Alex decided. Back to where this all started. That's suicide, Lucia argued, helping Dr. Kapoor seal a breach in one of their makeshift barricades. They control everything between us and that drill site. Not everything, Alex countered. The surface rovers. If we can reach the vehicle bay, we can take a rover to the original site and enter from above. It was a desperate plan, but it was the only one they had. As the aliens continued their assault on the habitat, slowly but methodically disabling critical systems, Alex selected a small team for the mission: himself, Lucia, Tom, and Raj. The rest of you need to hold this position, he told Mike, who would be in charge during his absence. Keep them distracted. Make them think we're all still here. Under cover of a controlled explosion in the eastern section of the habitat, a diversion organized by Dr. Wong, Alex's team made their break for the vehicle bay. They encountered two aliens along the way, dispatching them with concentrated fire before their cloaking technology could fully engage. The Martian surface greeted them with a dust storm, not a massive one, but enough to limit visibility and hopefully mask their escape from the base. The rover, thankfully, was undamaged and fully charged. If we're right about this, Alex said as they sped across the rusty landscape toward Drill Site 1, then these aliens have been here for thousands, maybe millions of years. Mars wasn't always the dead world we thought it was. They went underground when the planet lost its atmosphere, Lucia theorized, clinging to a handrail as the rover bounced over rough terrain. Created a subterranean civilization around the remaining water. And now we've threatened that, Tom added grimly. The 20-minute journey to the drill site felt like hours. When they finally arrived, the area looked dramatically different from when they'd left it. The simple borehole they'd created had been expanded into a yawning pit, with smooth, engineered walls descending into darkness. They've been busy, Raj remarked, checking his oxygen levels. Alex peered over the edge. This goes much deeper than our original drill site. They've reopened something. A faint blue glow emanated from far below, pulsing rhythmically like a heartbeat. The same rhythm they detected in the alien communications. Whatever answers we need are down there, Alex said, securing his descent line to the rover. And we're running out of time. As they prepared to descend into the unknown depths of Mars, their comms crackled to life with Mike's frantic voice. Alex. They've broken through. There. His transmission cut off abruptly, replaced by the now familiar mathematical sequences of alien communication. We have to hurry, Alex urged, beginning his descent into the pit. What awaited them below wasn't just a chamber or control room, but the entrance to an entire underground city, vast, ancient, and awakening from millennia of dormancy. Crystal-like structures rose from the cavern floor, each pulsing with the same blue energy they'd seen earlier. Rivers of water, actual flowing water, carved channels through the cave system, feeding pools where more of the biomechanical aliens were emerging, as if being born from the water itself. And at the center of it all stood a colossal machine, its purpose yet unclear but its power unmistakable. The machine's core thrummed with energy, sending pulses through conduits that connected to every part of the underground complex. I think that's their central control system, Raj whispered. It's coordinating everything, the nanobots, the water flow, maybe even their consciousness. So we destroy it? Tom asked, gripping his weapon tighter. No, Alex replied, his voice filled with sudden clarity. We communicate with it. Behind them, the sound of more aliens descending the shaft told them their time was almost up. Whatever they were going to do, it had to happen now. Communicate with it? Are you insane? Tom hissed, glancing nervously at the approaching shadows. These things have been trying to kill us for days. Alex pulled out Lucia's tablet, the one containing the captured alien communications. Not kill us. Test us. There's a difference. He began moving toward the colossal machine, keeping low behind the crystal formations. Lucia grabbed his arm. What are you thinking, Alex? The nanobots could have killed us instantly if that was their purpose. They've been in our air supply for days. Instead, they've been scanning us, learning about us. He pointed to the mathematical sequences on the tablet. This isn't just communication, it's a question. The aliens were getting closer, at least 5 of them descending into the cavern. Their slender bodies moved with unnatural grace, seemingly unhampered by Mars' reduced gravity. Alex reached the base of the massive machine. Up close, its surface was covered with the same symbols they'd found in the original chamber, but here they shifted and changed, as if alive. He placed his hand against the cool surface. Nothing happened. Alex, we're out of time, Raj warned, raising his weapon as the aliens closed in. Then, from behind them, a voice spoke, a human voice. The machine doesn't respond to your biology. It needs a different key. The team whirled around. Standing there was Dr. Yasmin Kapoor, who was supposed to be back at the habitat. Except her eyes now glowed with the same blue light as the machine. Yasmin. Lucia took a step back. How did you? I'm not exactly Yasmin anymore, she said, her voice overlaid with a strange harmonic quality. The nanobots you discovered weren't just machines. They're an interface, a bridge between biological consciousness and the Martian network. Understanding dawned on Alex's face. They've taken control of you. Not control. Symbiosis. Yasmin, or whatever she had become, approached the machine. Your colleague was exposed to a higher concentration during the initial breach. Her mind is now connected to the architect, what you would call the central artificial intelligence of this facility. Are you saying you're both Yasmin and this architect? Tom asked, his weapon still raised but uncertainty in his voice. In a manner of speaking, I am something new, a bridge between our species. She turned to Alex. Commander Chin, you were correct in your instinct to communicate rather than destroy. The Guardians have been observing your actions carefully. The Guardians, is that what they call themselves? Lucia asked. It's the closest translation your language can accommodate. Yasmin gestured to the aliens, who had stopped their advance and now stood in a semicircle watching. They are the caretakers of Mars, engineered to survive the planet's transformation from a water-rich world to the desert you know today. A tremor shook the cavern, stronger than any they'd felt before. Dust and small rocks rained down from above. What's happening? Raj shouted over the rumbling. The water wars have begun, Yasmin replied calmly. Your arrival has triggered a cascade response in the Martian network. What water wars? What are you talking about? Alex demanded that Yasmin Architect's expression grew grave. The Guardians are not the only intelligence that has existed on Mars. There is another, one that was imprisoned deep beneath the southern polar cap eons ago. The energy signatures from your habitat's nuclear power source have weakened its containment. The implication hit Alex like a physical blow. You're saying we've accidentally released something else? Not yet. But the barriers are failing. She pointed to a holographic display that had appeared above the machine, showing what looked like a map of Mars with a pulsing red area near the South Pole. The entity, as the Guardians call it, was sealed away because it sought to convert all of Mars' water into a medium for its own expansion, a form of technological parasitism that would have rendered the planet completely uninhabitable. So there's a third party in this conflict, Lucia realized. And it's waking up because of us. Another, stronger tremor rocked the cavern. This time, cracks appeared in the walls, and water began seeping through. The entity has already breached the preliminary containment layers, Yasmin Architect said. It now has access to some of the deep aquifer networks. The Guardians are redirecting water flow to slow its advance, but they cannot hold it back indefinitely. That's why they attacked our base, Tom realized. They thought we were somehow connected to this. Entity. Your drilling operations near the primary water repositories triggered their defense protocols. But now they understand that humanity is a separate threat or potential ally. Alex looked at the aliens, the Guardians, with new understanding. So all this time, we've been fighting the wrong enemy. There is still time to change that equation, Yasmin Architect said. She approached Alex and held out her hand. In it was a small crystalline device, pulsing with the same blue energy as the central machine. This is a neural interface. It will allow you to communicate directly with the Guardian network without the full symbiosis I have undergone. Why me? Alex asked. Because you are their commander, and because you chose communication over destruction. She glanced at the map, where the red area was expanding. But you must decide quickly. The entity grows stronger with every moment. From their comms came a burst of static, then Mike's panicked voice. Repeat, massive seismic activity detected at the South Pole. Some kind of, I don't know what it is, but it's big and it's heading north. If anyone can hear this, the transmission cut off abruptly. Alex looked at his team, then back at the device in Yasmin Architect's hand. If I use this, what happens to me? Do I lose myself like Yasmin? Not lose. Transform. But there is risk, your mind may not be compatible with the interface. Another tremor, stronger than before. A large section of the ceiling collapsed at the far end of the cavern, crushing two of the crystalline structures. We're out of options, Lucia said, dust settling on her helmet. Whatever's coming from the South Pole sounds worse than anything we've faced so far. Alex stared at the device. Everything had changed in an instant. The aliens they'd been fighting weren't invaders, they were Mars' ancient defenders. And now something far worse was awakening, something that had been imprisoned for millennia. What exactly would I need to do? He asked Yasmin Architect. Connect with the Architect. Help the Guardians reinforce the entity's containment. And she hesitated, prepare to make the ultimate sacrifice if containment fails. What sacrifice? The nuclear core of your habitat contains enough energy to collapse the caverns where the entity is emerging. It would mean destroying your only way home, but it might be the only way to stop what's coming. The weight of this new responsibility settled on Alex's shoulders. Not just the lives of his crew, but potentially the future of two worlds now hung in the balance. Show me, he said, reaching for the crystal as his fingers closed around it. The blue light intensified, spreading up his arm like luminescent veins. Alex gasped as his mind suddenly expanded, connecting to something vast and ancient, the collective consciousness of Mars itself, and through that connection he felt it, the entity in the south, a cold, calculating presence that radiated malevolence. It was awakening, unfurling after eons of dormancy. And it was hungry. It knows we're here, Alex whispered, his eyes now glowing with the same blue light as Yasmin's. It's coming for the water. For all of us. Alex's consciousness expanded beyond the confines of his body, flowing through the ancient Martian network like electricity through copper wire. The sensation was overwhelming, billions of data points flooding his mind simultaneously, the collective knowledge of a civilization that had thrived on Mars for millions of years before being forced beneath the surface. I can see everything, he whispered, his voice distant as if speaking from another world. The Guardians, they weren't always like this. They were more like us once. Through the neural interface, the history of Mars unfolded before him. He saw a planet teeming with life, not the barren wasteland humans had discovered, but a world of vast oceans and breathable atmosphere. He saw the original Martians, humanoid beings who had built great cities along coastlines that no longer existed, and he saw what happened to them. The entity, Alex continued, his glowing eyes fixed on something only he could see. It came from space, a technological plague that infected their most advanced AI systems. It began converting water molecules into self-replicating nanobots, turning their greatest resource into a weapon against them. Lucia moved closer, fascinated despite the danger. The Guardians fought back? They sacrificed everything, Alex confirmed. They engineered themselves, merged with machines to become the Guardians, beings that could survive as Mars dried up. They drove the entity back to the southern pole and imprisoned it in ice, but the battle cost them their planet's habitability. Another violent tremor shook the cavern. Chunks of ceiling crashed down, narrowly missing Tom and Raj. "Commander, whatever history lesson you're getting, we need action now," Tom urged. "The whole place is coming down." Alex snapped back to the present moment, though the connection to the architect remained. "The entity is using the water we discovered to rebuild itself. It's creating a new body from the ice caps and the underground aquifers." He turned to Yasmin Architect. "The Guardian's plan, collapsing our habitat's nuclear core, it won't be enough anymore, will it?" She shook her head. "The entity has grown too strong too quickly. It has already assimilated 6 major aquifer systems. The nuclear option would only slow it down." "Then what's the alternative?" Raj demanded. Alex's expression changed as information flowed through the neural interface. "There's another way. The original Martians built a planetary defense system before they transformed themselves, a network of geothermal taps that could channel the planet's core energy to the surface." "Mars doesn't have an active core," Lucia objected. "At least, that's what we thought. It's dormant, not dead," Alex explained. "The defense system was designed to trigger controlled volcanic activity, essentially terraforming in reverse. It would make the surface even more uninhabitable, but it would destroy the entity. And likely us along with it," Tom said grimly. The cavern shook again, more violently this time. A massive crack split the floor, revealing a rushing underground river beneath. "We need to get back to the habitat," Alex decided. "The activation controls for the defense system are there, in the same chamber where we found the first alien structures. The Guardians hid them in plain sight." "Can we reach it in time?" Raj asked, steadying himself against a crystal formation. Before anyone could answer, the comms crackled to life. It was Mike again, his voice tight with controlled panic. "If anyone's receiving this, we've got a situation. Something massive is approaching the base from the south. It's like the ground itself is moving. We've barricaded ourselves in the command module, but I don't know how long we'll..." Static cut him off. "We need to hurry," Alex urged. With Yasmin Architect and 3 Guardians joining them, the team made their way back to the surface. The Martian landscape had transformed in the short time they'd been underground. Dark veins now crisscrossed the rusty soil, pulsating with sickly green energy, the entity's influence spreading like a virus across the planet's surface. The rover was where they'd left it, but the journey back to the habitat was treacherous. Twice they nearly lost control as the ground shifted beneath them, new fissures opening in the Martian crust. When they finally reached the base, they found it partially collapsed. The southern modules were completely destroyed, crushed by something that had emerged from beneath and then moved on. "Dr. Wong." Alex called over the emergency frequency. "Anyone copy?" After a moment of heart-stopping silence, Mike's voice came through. "Alex? Thank God. We're still in the command module. Whatever that thing was, it circled the base and headed north. It's searching for more water repositories," Yasmin Architect explained. "It will continue to grow until it has consumed every drop on Mars." The remaining team members were shocked to see Yasmin and the Guardians accompanying Alex's group, but there was no time for lengthy explanations. Alex's glowing eyes and the neural interface visible beneath his skin told them enough. Alliances had shifted drastically. "The defense system," Alex said, heading straight for the drill site chamber. "We need to activate it now." The original chamber had transformed as well. What had once appeared to be decorative etchings on the walls now glowed with the same blue energy as the Guardian technology. At the center, the control panel they discovered had expanded, revealing a complex interface. Alex placed his hands on the panel, his consciousness once again merging with the Martian network. Through this connection, he could sense the entity's movements, its rapid expansion across Mars' northern hemisphere. "It's aware of what we're trying to do," he warned. "It's coming here. Now." The ground beneath the habitat began to tremble. Not the sharp, sudden quakes they'd experienced before, but a continuous vibration that grew stronger with each passing second. "What do we need to do?" Lucia asked, standing by Alex's side. The defense system needs power, more than it has after lying dormant for millennia. It needs the nuclear core, Mike finished, understanding dawning. We need to feed our habitat's power source into the Martian defense grid. But the transfer has to be manual. Someone needs to stay behind to manage the energy flow and prevent a catastrophic overload. The implication hung heavy in the air. Whoever stayed would not survive. I'll do it, Alex said, his decision already made. The neural interface gives me the best chance of success. No, Lucia objected. There has to be another way. The vibrations intensified. Through the habitat's remaining cameras, they could see something massive approaching on the horizon, a writhing, shifting mass of green-black energy that consumed everything in its path. There's no time, Alex insisted. The rest of you need to get to the emergency escape vehicle. It's small, but it has enough fuel to reach the Phobos refueling station. From there, you can signal Earth. Reluctantly, the team began preparations for evacuation. The Guardians would remain on Mars. It was their home, and they were committed to its defense regardless of the outcome. As the others loaded essential supplies into the escape vehicle, Lucia stayed with Alex in the control chamber. I'm staying too, she said firmly. You'll need help managing the energy transfer. Lucia, this isn't a discussion, Commander. Her eyes were steady, her decision final. The entity was less than a kilometer away now, its massive form visible through the habitat's viewports, a churning nightmare of mechanical tendrils and corrupted Martian soil. The very ground it passed over was transformed, breaking down at the molecular level to feed its insatiable growth. Alex placed his hands on the ancient control panel one last time, Lucia beside him. Through the neural interface, he initiated the activation sequence for Mars' planetary defense system. Deep beneath the surface, something ancient stirred. The dormant core of Mars, cooled over billions of years, received the command. Magma that had been still for eons began to flow, directed by channels engineered by the original Martians. Energy transfer beginning, Alex announced as Mike engaged the habitat's nuclear core. The lights flickered as power was diverted to the ancient Martian technology. The rest of the team reached the escape vehicle, looking back one last time at the habitat that had been their home. Through the communication system, they heard Alex's final instructions. When you reach Earth, tell them what really happened here. Tell them Mars isn't dead, it's awakening. The escape vehicle launched, racing toward Phobos as the entity reached the perimeter of the habitat. Its massive tendrils began tearing through the structure, seeking the water resources inside. In the control chamber, Alex and Lucia stood firm as the walls around them began to buckle. The neural interface glowed brighter as more power flowed into the defense system. It's working, Alex said, watching the readouts. The core temperature is rising. Sure, building in the subsurface channels. The entity seemed to sense the danger. Its attack on the habitat became more frenzied, more desperate. A massive tendril smashed through the ceiling of the control chamber, reaching for the ancient Martian technology. Not this time, Lucia said, firing her weapon at the corrupted mass. The entity recoiled momentarily, buying them precious seconds. Energy transfer at 80%, Alex reported. Almost there. The habitat systems were failing around them. Oxygen levels dropping, structural integrity compromised. But through it all, power continued to flow into Mars' ancient defense grid. Transfer complete, Alex finally announced. He looked at Lucia, a sad smile on his face. It's been an honor. The ground beneath them heaved. Not a tremor this time, but the beginning of something far more powerful. Across the northern hemisphere of Mars, long-dormant volcanic vents burst open, spewing superheated gas and magma onto the surface. The sudden release of pressure created a shockwave that raced across the planet. The entity shrieked, a sound not heard on Mars for millions of years, as the geothermal eruptions tore through its extending body. Its technological components melted in the intense heat, its control over Mars' water supply severed. In the final moments, as the habitat collapsed around them, Alex made one last connection through the neural interface. What he discovered caused his eyes to widen in shock. Lucia, he gasped. The defense system, it's not just destroying the entity. It's restarting Mars. Through their viewport, they watched as the sky above Mars began to change. The geothermal eruptions were releasing massive amounts of water vapor and gases long trapped beneath the surface. Within hours, Mars would have the beginnings of a new atmosphere. The Guardians knew, Alex realized. This wasn't just a defense system. It was a reset button. As the habitat's final systems failed and the volcanic activity reached their location, Alex and Lucia held onto each other. Their sacrifice would give Mars a second chance, and perhaps humanity a second home, once the planet stabilized again in the centuries to come. The escape vehicle reached Phobos safely, its occupants watching in awe as Mars transformed before their eyes. The red planet was changing, clouds forming in its thin atmosphere for the first time in millions of years. What they couldn't know, what only Alex had glimpsed in his final connection to the Martian network, was that beneath the surface, in sealed chambers designed to withstand even this cataclysm, millions of hibernation pods were beginning to activate. The original Martians had never truly died out. They had merely been waiting for eons, for the day when their world could be reborn. And now, as the first rains in millions of years began to fall on Mars, the sleeping civilization was awakening. 3 years passed since that fateful day on Mars. The remnants of the first Mars expedition, Dr. Mike Wong, Dr. Thomas Baines, Raj Patel, and 3 others, had returned to Earth as heroes, though the full story of what happened remained classified to all but the highest levels of government and military. The world knew only that a geological event had transformed Mars, creating the beginnings of a breathable atmosphere. What they didn't know was that humanity was no longer alone in the solar system. Mike stood at the observation window of the Olympus station, the new international outpost orbiting Mars. Below, the planet's surface had changed dramatically. Patches of blue water were visible now, small seas forming in the lowest basins as the ice caps continued their accelerated melt. Wisps of clouds scudded across the thin but growing atmosphere. Still hard to believe, Tom said, joining him at the window. 3 years ago we were fighting for our lives down there. And now we're preparing for the most important diplomatic mission in human history, Mike replied. The door to the observation deck slid open, and General Rivera entered, followed by a team of international officials. Gentlemen, it's time. The Martian representatives have agreed to meet. The shuttle ride to the surface was tense with anticipation. As they descended through the thin Martian atmosphere, now rich enough in oxygen to support human life with just a breathing mask rather than a full suit, Mike thought about Alex and Lucia. Their sacrifice had made this moment possible, though few would ever know the true extent of their heroism. The landing site was a flat plain near what they now called the Resurrection Zone, the area where the first hibernation chambers had been discovered emerging from the thawing Martian soil. A structure had been built there, a simple dome of local materials designed to accommodate both human and Martian physiologies. Remember the protocols, Rivera reminded them as they prepared to disembark. These beings may look somewhat humanoid, but their culture predates our entire civilization by millions of years. We follow their lead. The Martian delegation was already waiting inside the dome. 5 figures stood in a semicircle, their tall, slender bodies draped in shimmering garments that seemed to shift colors with each movement. Their skin was pale blue, almost translucent, and their large eyes, adapted for the dim light of their underground hibernation chambers, were protected by special lenses in the bright Martian daylight. With them stood 3 guardians, their biomechanical bodies now fully visible without the cloaking technology they'd once used. The lead Martian stepped forward. "We welcome the children of Earth to the reborn world of Mars," it said in perfect English, its voice melodic and fluid. "We have learned your languages from the memories shared through the Architect network." Mike felt a chill run down his spine. The Martian was referring to the neural connection that Alex had established before his death. Somehow, his memories, his knowledge, had been preserved. "We come in peace and friendship," Rivera responded formally. "Humanity extends its hand in cooperation to the people of Mars." The Martian made a gesture that seemed equivalent to a nod. "The sacrifice of your people, Alex Chen and Lucia Rodriguez, has not been forgotten. Their consciousness lives on within the Architect." They have told us much about humanity. Mike couldn't help himself. They're alive? In some form. The Martian tilted its head. Not as you understand life. But their memories, their essence, these continue. They have become part of Mars itself. It gestured to the Guardians. Just as we once merged with machines to survive, they have merged with our planetary consciousness. A holographic display activated in the center of the room, showing the rapid transformation of Mars over the past 3 years. Rivers were forming, simple plant life engineered by the awakened Martians beginning to spread across the equatorial regions. The defense system that destroyed the entity was also designed to restore our world, the Martian explained. What would have taken millions of years of natural processes will now take merely centuries. Mars is healing. And humanity's role in this new Mars? Rivera asked carefully. We were a dying race when the entity came, the Martian replied. Though millions of us survived in hibernation, we are still few compared to our former numbers. Mars is vast. There is room for both our peoples, if yours can learn from our mistakes. The Martian gestured to the Guardians. These servants watched over our sleeping forms for millions of years. They protected Mars from the entity until humans unwittingly released it. And now, together, we have defeated it permanently. The lead Martian extended its hand, a gesture clearly learned from Alex's memories, toward Rivera. We propose a covenant between our worlds. You will help us rebuild our civilization, and we will help you avoid the technological hubris that nearly destroyed us. Together, we will make Mars a shared home. As Rivera stepped forward to take the Martian's hand, Mike felt the weight of the moment. Humanity had come to Mars seeking water and found instead their cosmic neighbors. The red planet would never again be the dead world they had once believed it to be. That evening, as the human delegation prepared to return to Olympus Station, Mike took one last walk on the Martian surface. The sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and orange, colors that hadn't been seen on Mars for millions of years. Near the memorial that had been erected for Alex and Lucia, Mike noticed something unusual. A small pool of water had formed, fed by the melting permafrost. And in that water, impossibly, was a tiny green plant. The first natural Martian life to emerge in eons. As he knelt to examine it, he felt a strange sensation, almost like someone was watching over his shoulder. The breeze seemed to whisper with familiar voices. We're still here, it seemed to say. In the water. In the soil. In Mars itself. Mike smiled, touching the surface of the small pool. We'll make you proud, he promised. Both our worlds. Together. Above him, the first star of evening appeared, Earth, shining brightly in the darkening Martian sky. Two worlds, once separated by seeming lifelessness, now linked by sacrifice, courage, and the promise of a shared future. The water rippled beneath his fingers, as if in response. And somewhere, in the vast consciousness that now spanned the reawakening planet, Alex and Lucia watched over the new beginning they had helped create.